Welcome back to part 4 of the Great PEI Adventure Tour of the Lights. Last time we followed the light trail to the south central lighthouses. This time we're traveling east from Malpeque Bay to Charlottetown, looking for 8 more as we travel the northern shoreline of Prince Edward Island. Starting our journey today, we're looking for the Fish Island former lighthouse. It is situated in Capita Beach Provincial Park. Fish Island is the entrance to Malpeque Bay, which is considered the most important harbor of refuge on the north coast of Prince Edward Island. The tragic loss of 160 lives and over 80 vessels in the Yankee Gale of 1851 identified an urgency for a lighthouse to guide the numerous vessels through the shifting bars to the safety of Malpeque Bay. The first lighthouse was built in 1853, but it failed to meet the ends designed in its establishment. Therefore, in 1857, a petition was presented to the House of Assembly for £100 to build a replacement lighthouse on Fish Island. In all, there were 4 Fish Island lighthouses and range lights built on Fish Island between 1853 and 1913. And they continued until 1961, when they were replaced by this light. Severe erosion in 1989 undermined the range light tower, and the Canadian Coast Guard planned to demolish it. Local fishermen in the Malpeque Historical Society were not willing to let this take place, so with the help of Bill Auld, president of MHS, and Keith Davidson, this small range light was cut in two and flown to its present location in Cabot Park. The first Fish Island keeper was Benjamin Thompson in 1853, and the last was Jay Chappell, and he watched over it until 1964. Northeast of Fish Island Lighthouse is the Malpeque Outer Range Lights. The main entrance to Malpeque Harbour, or Richmond Bay, lies between Billhook, Fish Island, and Cape Aylesbury. To reach the entrance, mariners first have to follow the Darnley Lights, known now as the Malpeque Outer Range Lights, located just a kilometre east of Cape Aylesbury, until the range light intersects with that of the Fish Island Lights, the Malpeque Harbour Approach Range Lights. This second pair of range lights then guides the mariners into the harbour. The first set of Darnley lights were built in 1889, and even then they were quite rudimentary and consisted of only a lantern hoisted on top of a 9.1 metre mast with a shed at its base. John D. Morrison was appointed the first keeper of the range lights and was replaced upon his death in 1890 by Cornelius Morrison, who served until 1896. Not until 1897 were actual towers constructed. They were 7.6 meters tall, or 25 feet tall, at a grand total of $170 for material and labor.
No trespass. No decent. No, don't dump them down here because it's hard to open it up.
Unfortunately, I wasn't able to gain access to the front range as the roads on both sides were blocked and marked private property. The Canadian Coast Guard now refers to the Darnley Point lights as the Malpeque Outer Range Lights in its official list of lights. Fixed red lights are still displayed from their tower. The two towers are very similar. The front tower has corner boards and wooden gallery support brackets, while the rear tower lacks corner boards and has iron support brackets. A red vertical stripe on the seaward face of the towers helps to mark the range lines. Malpeque Outer Range rear light was registered by the Prince Edward Island Historic Places Protection Act on July the 12th, 2012. Its keepers, John D. Morrison, acted from 1889 to 1890, and the last keeper was Daniel Champion from 1935 to 1962. Just 10 kilometers to our east resides the old Cape Tryon Lighthouse. It no longer resides in Cape Tryon, but has been moved to Cousin Shore. The first Cape Tryon Lighthouse was put into service on the beginning of navigation in 1905 and stood on the ground 15.2 meters tall. In 1906, the temporary lens was replaced with a fourth-order Fresnel lens manufactured in Paris, France. The lens had 4 lenticular panels and completed 1 revolution every 20 seconds, producing a 0.638 second flash every 5 seconds. The illumination was petroleum vapor burned under a mantle. Captain William Bell from French River was the first caper of the Cape Tryon lighthouses, serving from 1905 until he passed away in 1915. After it was decommissioned, Ron and Alberta Sumners purchased this lighthouse and moved it to its current location, where they lovingly restored the lighthouse to serve as a summer cottage. The Summers just happened to be related to the 2 keepers who served at Cape Tryon. Ron's great-uncle is James Graham, and Alberta's great-great-grandfather is Captain William Bell, first keeper of its lighthouse. The shoreline around Cousin Shore is absolutely stunning, and when you take the PEI Adventure Lighthouse Tour, make sure to take some time to have a look down at Cousin Shore. You won't be disappointed. Five and a half kilometers away to our east is our next lighthouse on our list, and it is the Cape Tryon Lighthouse. Cape Tryon is located 2.4 kilometers northwest of New London Harbour. It is a remarkable red sandstone cliff with a height of 33.5 meters or 110 feet. From the lofty perch, the Cape Tryon Lighthouse guides mariners along the northern coast of Prince Edward Island between Richmond Bay and New London, warning of the shallow water that extends out a considerable distance from the shore. This tower is a tapered wooden tower that is shingled and painted white with a red trim. A narrow red deck and a metal railing surrounds the simple lantern. There are pediments above the windows and the doors. The interior is unfinished, and the lighthouse has always been electrified and never did have a dwelling. Although records indicate that a light was established here in 1865, the first lighthouse situated on the site was built in 1905. It was one of the island lighthouses that remained in service year-round from 1943 to 1945. It helped to aid wartime pilots training at the British Commonwealth Air Training Schools. The current lighthouse that you see here was built in 1965, to the right of the original lighthouse that we saw back at Cousin Shore. L.M. Montgomery's Anne House of Dreams was published in 1909. It is set around Four Winds Harbour, in actuality New London Harbour, and features the Four Winds Lighthouse kept by Captain Jim. The following description of the settings of the lighthouse given in Chapter 9 of the book leaves little doubt that it was based on the Cape Tryon Lighthouse. The Four Winds Light was built on a spur of red sandstone cliff jutting out into the Gulf. In May of 2016, the L.M. Montgomery Land Trust, whose purpose is to preserve the seashore familiar to L.M. Montgomery, became the new owners of the lighthouse. The keepers of the lights was William Bell from 1905 to 1915, and the last keeper was Arthur Elwood Painter from 1953 to 1962. Just 3.5 kilometers from Cape Tryon Lighthouse is the New London Lighthouse. The New London Back Range Light is a square tapered tower that is 14.1 meters tall. The walls of the attached dwelling follow the taper of the tower. A narrow plank deck with a metal railing surrounds the small lantern. It has a few decorative elements except for the shed dormers over the windows and the doors. In 1876, George Mackenzie of French River constructed the New London Lighthouse for $1,300. Upon completion, he stayed in the lighthouse and as the keeper for 20 years. The light in the lantern room was originally a fixed white with a red streak, visible only when vessels were in alignment with the channel. Was shown from a windowed 16 feet below the lantern room. The range lights were moved in 1891, 200 feet, 61 meters closer to the mouth of the channel. In 1894, keeper Captain George Mackenzie saved the lighthouse from destruction by entering the lantern, which was engulfed by flames, and single-handedly extinguishing the fire. The light was rented to Gunther family from the mid-1960s to 2000, when the Canadian Coast Guard discontinued private leasing of the Prince Edward Island lighthouses. The red day mark was removed in 2008, when the front range was removed in 2001. The red stripe was removed from the tower and again functioned as a lighthouse rather than a back range light. The electricity was removed in 2009, but a solar-powered light continues to provide guidance. The New London Lighthouse was designated as a heritage place under the Prince Edward Island Heritage Places Protection Act on October 3, 2012. Russ H. Gunther spent his summers in New London Harbour and wrote a poem. The New London Range, there's a light that I know of. It waits for you and me, guiding weary sailors who dwell upon the sea. And when it is night and the sky is light, yet darkened is the land, I fill my lamp with oil and strike my match, and wander in the sand, for the beacon stands alone from us. The sailors have to see a line of light on faded sand, or flounder in debris. I think of this old lighthouse between the timeless sky, for there it is, New London Bay, ships rest in PEI.
I think you can walk it there.
It's an amazing view coming down here into French River Wharf. These guys coming along on the dirt bikes, they were going so slow I could tell that they were really enjoying the scenery. "30 kilometers east of the New London Lighthouse is the North Rustico Harbour Light. This is the Turner Road. It's a little bit of an alternate, but if you don't want to do it, you can just keep going straight when you come to the Turner Road, and it'll take you right into Cavendish if you want to stay on the main road. North Rustico, situated on the northern shore of Prince Edward Island, facing the Gulf of St. Lawrence, was founded around 1790 by Acadians. The name Rustico came from Racicot, who was one of the first French settlers. Locally, the community is known as the Crick.
Maybe not.
The North Rustico Harbour Lighthouse was built in 1876. It is 12.4 meters tall. The walls of the attached dwelling follow the taper of the tower, and its exterior is covered with metal siding. The lighthouse was designed by the Department of Marine. The builder is unknown. It was first moved in 1884. It was determined and capsized during a gale in January the 12th, 1899. It was then moved back and rebuilt as a coastal light. It was moved again in 1914. A new foundation was installed in 1954. It was damaged again in 2009 in a storm surge. This is one of the few island lighthouses that did not have a dwelling removed when it was destaffed. When it was destaffed in 1960, the attached dwelling was leased as a summer residence from 1968 to 1973. A new tower was built in 1973. The old tower was declared surplus in 1974-75. However, a strong public pressure led to the re-establishment of the old tower in 1976. The interior was stripped for a number of years. Surplus lighthouse equipment was stored there. In 2012, Friends of the North Shore Communities submitted a petition for ownership of the North Rustico Lighthouse. This was made available under the Heritage Lighthouse Protection Act of 2010. During a meeting on October the 3rd, 2012, two potential business plans for the lighthouse was presented. The first proposal envisioned the lighthouse to be remodeled to serve as a rental cottage, which the second had the lighthouse serving as an information center and a retail outlet for local products. The first proposal was favored by a vote of 18 to 12, and it was submitted to the Department of Fisheries before November the 1st deadline. North Rustico Lighthouse was recognized as a heritage place under the Prince Edward Island Heritage Places Protection Act on October the 3rd, 2012. On September the 25th, 2013, the lighthouse was awarded a provincially designated Heritage Places plaque. The keepers of the lights first was William H. McNeil from 1868 to 1869, and the last keeper was George Alfred Pino from 1925 to 1960. There is always something going on in North Rustico Harbour through the summer, so if you take the PEI Lighthouse tour, make sure to stop. There's all kinds of festivals, places to eat, the harbour, deep sea fishing, and lots of people to meet and talk to. Don't forget to visit the Crick. About 37 kilometers to our east is our last destination for today, and it is the Cove Head Lighthouse, located in Dalvey by the sea. In 1879, two masts were erected to serve as range lights at the entrance to Cove Head Harbour in Queens County, with Ernest McMillan serving as keeper of the inner and rear light range, John McCabe serving as the keeper of the outer and the front light range. The present Cove Head Harbour Lighthouse is 8.2 meters tall in height with a focal plane of 10 meters above the surrounding water. It serves as a coastal light instead of a range light. Revolving bull's-eyed Fresnel lens in the lantern room emits a white 0.5 second flash followed by an eclipse of 4.5 seconds and was reportedly located from Dalhousie, New Brunswick. The tower's foghorn is maintained by a local harbour authority, points due north, and when needed sounds a 3-second blast followed by a 23 seconds of silence. The lighthouse was renovated in 1994 and covered with pressure-treated cedar siding. A plaque on the side of the lighthouse commemorating the gale of 1851 reads, "The forenoon had been particularly balmy, Schooners had sailed into the shallow waters in search of mackerel and cod, but darkness found the vessels trapped in the stillness close to the land, and there was no breeze to carry them offshore. That evening a strong gale blew from the northeast, and by midnight it raged in a powerful gale. For several days the wind and the waves gathered strength. On the morning of the fourth day the sea subsided, battered the ships that were strewn along the north shore. Bodies of sailors and fishermen were entangled amongst the wreckage. Many men were buried here in Prince Edward Island. Their graves are a silent reminder of the changing moods of the sea. Lloyd Bell was the last keeper of the Cove Head Lighthouse, and he served from 1936 to 1959. Our Northern Light Tour complete. What better way to head back toward Charlottetown than to hit the Gulf Shore Parkway and take the long way back.
It don't pay me no mind, and the scenery just keeps changing, but these floats, they just stay the same. Same old fearful eyes are staring, asking me
The journey continues next time as we explore the western coastline of Prince Edward Island's lighthouses, an adventure where we've never gone before. Take care.